Digging by Seamus Heaney. Between my finger and my thumb, the squat pen rests, snug as a gun. Under my window, a clean, rasping sound when the spade sinks into the gravelly ground. My father, digging. I look down, till his straining rump among the flower beds bends low, comes up 20 years away, stooping in rhythm through potato drills where he was digging. The coarse boot nestled on the lug. The shaft against the inside knee was levered firmly. He rooted out tall tops, buried the bright edge deep to scatter new potatoes that we picked, loving their cool hardness in our hands. By God, the old man could handle a spade, just like his old man. My grandfather cut more turf in a day than any other man on Toner's bog. Once I carried him milk in a bottle, corked sloppily with paper. He straightened up to drink it, then fell to right away, nicking and slicing neatly, heaving sods over his shoulder, going down and down for the good turf, digging. The cold smell of potato mold, the squelch and slap of soggy peat, the curt cuts of an edge, through living roots awaken in my head. But I've no spade to follow men like them. Between my finger and my thumb, the squat pen rests. I'll dig with it. So as you can see, I have the personal pronouns my and I circled in blue. This represents that it is a narrative poem, and the reader can possibly assume that Seamus is the speaker. Next, in green, I have the simile of a pen that is snug as a gun. And this gun may represent some sort of protection for the author. And snug also has a connotation of something close to you or something that is within your grasp. Also, if you look at the words snug and gun, they are almost just jumbled up of each other, which creates conflict within the speaker. In the pink highlighter, I have noted the alliteration. A clean rasping sound when the spade sinks. That is the repetition of the S sound. And then graveling ground is the repetition of the GR sound. I think the alliteration here is important to notice because it represents the repetition and the grueling tasks that both his father and grandfather endured during this time in Ireland. Next, in the orange color, I recognized a sort of disconnection between the speaker and his stories of his father. So he says, I look down, so immediately he is somewhere other than his father. He is inside writing while his father is outside working. And this creates a separation between the traditions in Ireland and the traditions of digging and his life as a writer inside his bedroom or wherever he is in his home. So in the purple, I have sort of separated apart a story or observation from the narrator about his father. It has a very respectful tone, demonstrating all of the hard work that his father did while working in the potato farms. In the yellow, I noted my father, old man, that repeated, and as well as my grandfather. This represents the generations of men who do work for potatoes, and it also represents the tradition. So the repetition of old man reminds me of something that is passed down, and it is also chronological from his story to his father's story to his grandfather's. Again, in the purple, I have separated a story about his grandfather. The narrator uses a very respectful tone. He is admiring his grandfather's hard work while digging. The words such as slicing neatly, going down and down, these represent his grandfather's determination. I think it's important to notice the separation of the word digging, just simply with a period. It's highlighted in red. This represents the significant task it plays during this time period and the repetition that it held within their lives in Ireland. The use of the words cold smell of potato mold, squelch, slap, soggy peat, curt cuts, these are all very harsh sounding words. So this illustrates that digging for the speaker would be a dreadful experience and a somewhat sour thing for his life, just like the words represent. I have circled the word but because this represents a shift in the poem. Highlighted in pink is the most significant shift. But I've no spade to follow men like them. This is a moment where the narrator is finally taking responsibility and he is maturing. His feelings and emotions are being expressed for the first time in the poem, and instead of simply watching through the window, he is now doing something productive for his life. To expand upon the narrator determining his own life, the use of my, I've, I'll, these first-person pronouns represent and reveal his determination and dedication to be a writer. The possessive pronouns demonstrate his control, and just like his father and grandfather had control and dedication to dig in Ireland, he will have dedication to dig with his pen, figuratively, and he will become a successful writer. Looking at the title, I immediately thought of gardening or planting something. I also thought of dirt, something gross, something deep in the ground. Digging can also have the implication of new life, such as planting a new tree or flower, but it can also have an implication of death, like digging a grave. So a short paraphrase of the poem is that the speaker does not want to be a potato farmer. He instead wants to write. He wants to please his family, yet he has no desire to dig. In the first line, it says, my finger and my thumb, and the use of my may indicate that this is a narrative of Seamus Heaney's life. Because he is from Ireland, we can recognize the importance of potato farming, especially during the potato famine. I considered to examine the poetic device of a symbol. So from the beginning, the spade sinks into a gravelly ground, and the spade here is simply just a tool for digging as it is sinking in. Then further down, it says the old man could handle a spade, and now the spade is becoming a more complex symbol. The spade for the old man is not only a tool, but it is also a lifestyle. He can handle the spade while he is digging, and he can handle the lifestyle of farming potatoes and using spades as a strenuous task. And finally, the most ironic use of the symbols of the spade is in the end when the narrator says, but I've no spade to follow men like them. And this is a double meaning of the spade. It means digging and desire. So he literally has no desire to follow men like them. He has no cards on the table, you could say. I immediately thought of spade as a card, like the ace of spades. And he also has no tools. He has no physical spade to follow men like them. He has no physical means of digging potatoes. As I mentioned earlier, I felt a disconnected tone, but I felt a determined and dedicated attitude from the author. To summarize the shift, as I mentioned earlier in my annotations, the narrator shifts from watching from the window to now doing and deciding his own future. So it is kind of a shift from his past to his present. When I revisit the title, now on a more interpretive level, I can recognize that digging is not only an external physical experience with a shovel, something dirty or simple action. I can now understand it to be an internal action, something like an introspection or looking within yourself, your feelings, and digging to find an answer. This is what I mainly saw in the narrator. The most prevalent theme that I saw was the search for one's identity. This human experience is demonstrated throughout the poem and within the narrator's story. Rather than digging down into the ground, he instead was digging himself out of a hole and into his future. He had to watch others, and by indirectly watching his father and grandfather dig, he found his identity by realizing that he did not want to dig, and rather he wanted to be a writer. In the poem, Digging, Heaney utilizes first-person point of view to demonstrate the speaker's observations and understandings, ultimately revealing the human experience of finding one's identity. When the author says, "But I've no spade to follow men like them," we can immediately see the first-person pronoun in use. Through the use of the first-person point of view, the reader can fully understand the author's understandings as well as his observations. The narrator creates his own identity by following a different path than his older generations did. Ironically, after digging within himself, he has come to the conclusion that digging will not be in his future.